after last game was the energy level after the start that you guys got off to against La Tech. Against this Marshall team, it seems like they can put up a bunch of points. I believe fourth in Conference USA in scoring at about 80 points per game, and they can kind of put it together in bunches as they showed their last time out against La Tech. They overcame a 17-point second half deficit. How important does that make a fast start on Friday, tomorrow? And, is there anything that you can do for that, or is it just more of the guys going out and doing it?
Well, Jared, hey, if I had that magic peel or magic dust, I could give them to know for sure we're going to get the fast start. Trust me, I would use it. But unfortunately, we don't have no magic peels for that. You just got to hope you're prepared mentally. A lot of it's mental. Sometimes nobody misses shots on purpose. Sometimes that ball just don't go in the hole. Mentally, sometimes when you're not sharp, you can turn that ball over maybe a few more times than you normally would when you're sharp. So, but to answer your question, it's very important to always get off to a good start. You get off to a good start, it helps so much of everything. It helps your defense. When you're struggling offensively, whether you like it or not, it just affects your defensive, affects you at the defensive end too. So, like always, we want to try to get off to a good start, Jarrett.
Kind of going off of that, what is it about this Marshall offense that makes them so dangerous? It seems like they share the ball well. I believe they're second in assists in the league, and they also shoot a lot of threes. I believe they attempt the third most in the league behind FIU and Rice.
Well, again, they're going to put 5 shooters out there, most nights, probably for 30, 35 minutes of that 40 minutes. They're going to have a 5 guy and a 4 guy that can shoot it too. But where they're really good at, they spread you out because you got to guard that 3-point shot. And they're so good at just throwing that ball to the rim, and dunking over you because that court spread. So they've always played that way. It's a tough system to defend. When they're making 3-point shots, they're hard to beat. For the first 25 minutes at La Tech, they wasn't making them very well. And like you just said, they got down 17 points. But all of a sudden that, switch changed. They started making 3-point shots, and they overcame being down 17 to win that game in Ruston.
Coach, I guess for you guys, playing Marshall twice in 3 days, obviously less than ideal for playing a team like Marshall. You guys have had a good rivalry for so long now, but usually you play them, maybe twice in the same week, but not twice in 3 days. I guess, how do you guys prepare for, 2 games against a tough opponent like that?
Hey, but Tyler, that's probably better still than back-to-back. So as bad as you still say it is, it's still better than it would be. We do have a day off in between games. And for the most part, seems like this Marshall series has always been separated. We've had probably several weeks we played them the same week. We may play Wednesday, Saturday. Seems like we had a Monday, Saturday. So it's always been broken up. We've never had a Friday, Saturday that I can remember. But even, I think 2 things are different. We're going to change venues, number one. We'll play here 1 game and go up there, and there's a day off. So there won't be many adjustments you're going to make, except it's going to be a change of venues on that second game.
Now, Coach, this is Jeff Lightsey. How does that affect game plan or anything? Like you said, it's not the back-to-back, same team, twice in 2 days. How different is that actually getting that day in between and changing venues in between as well?
Well, Jeff, if you'd asked me maybe before the season, I would have said, I don't think it'll be that big a factor. But, like Zach says, there's enough data out there right now. Again, I'm not one to really want to buy into all the data, even though there's data. I do understand what it is. That don't mean we don't try to approach it differently and we don't try to do some things. But it's been very obvious, just not in our league, but across the country. I guess there's 3 other leagues for sure, maybe 4 other leagues, 3 for sure that's doing the same thing we are, just back-to-back. And it's just amazing the difference in those scores on that second game. I know in our league, there's been 22 games, but there's been 19 splits. So that's kind of a little bit amazing in our league even. There's that many splits so far. It is different. It is different. And again, we have to understand this. We're the hunted. We got a big bullseye on our chest. People come and play us on the first night. You win that first game. First off, they're going to have that edge coming in here anyway. You know, ain't no pressure on them. They're going to play the so-called, you know, preseason favorite. So mentally, there's an edge there. Then when you win that first night, darn sure there's an edge in that second night. But again, we got to find ways. I got to do a better job somehow, some way, for us to be good enough to overcome that. But again, the first thing you got to do is win the first night. That's still always important, win that first one. And we'll have a challenge here against Marshall. But like you said, they can really score that basketball. They can shoot it. And, you know, and whenever you score points, then we got to be able to score some points with them.
Coach, they haven't played since January 2nd. So do you think rust will kind of play into your favor a little bit?
Well, it's a little different than rust. They've been there able to practice. It's not like rust when you're off for Christmas and you come back a week later. So they all been there working out. You know, basically they've been able to keep working groups out. I don't know if they've had a consistent team, but they've been able to get individual workouts in and groups of 4 or 5. We know groups of 4 or 5. So they've been able to keep that rust, you know, knocked off. You know, I'm sure they're going to be fresh coming in here. Again, none of that stuff matters. You throw that ball up. You got to be the best team for 40 minutes.
Hey, Coach, shared with the Daily News again, going back to Marshall and their ability to spread the floor like you had talked about. You know, it kind of reminds me when you talk about that against Alabama, who came in attempting 33s a game about when you guys played them. You know, how much do you look at that game and what you did and what you had success in and what you didn't when you're preparing for this game?
Well, they're just totally different the way they play. You know, Alabama doesn't throw it to the rim on those lobs. They basically spread you out 5 people behind that line. There's nobody attacking on lobs. And again, as I've said, you get caught up in Alabama trying to defend that 3, they beat you on driving that ball to the hole. And that was kind of our first line of thought. Can't get beat on all those 2s. You get caught up guarding the 3s, they beat you on driving it. Marshall, they're a good shooting team. You got really good players. But again, you got to be able to limit those 2-pointers, those lobs and those dunks. That's where they beat you at. You know, they're averaging 9.5 threes a game, averaging 80 points. So, you know, that's about 40% of your points come from threes. So there's 60% coming from somewhere. And you got to limit some of those, you know, lob dunks because the way they play and having you spread out.
You know, Tavion Kinsey obviously gets a lot of attention, top scorer in the league. But, you know, they've got some other guys too. And I look at a guy like Jared West, who I believe is first in the league in assists, you know, still top 15 in scoring, second in steals. And, you know, him and Kinsey are both top 4 assist to turnover ratio. You know, I guess what's it going to take to try to slow those guys down and the rest of the team as well and not get too caught up with one or the other?
Well, Jared, they're a load. You know, West is a terrific player, and no question, Kinsey. Not many athletes in the country better than him. I think I saw somewhere they said he measured at the combine, or it was the NBA combine this last spring, or where it was at, that he had the second highest vertical ever. So that tells you his athletic ability. He's gotten so he's making a few threes now. Well, he's 9 for 18 at 50%. So you've got to be able to honor that. You know, like you say, West is one of those guys, does a little bit of everything. He's facilitates it well, can really pass it. Same time, he's a terrific shooter. So, you know, Dan does a great job, you know, putting those guys in space. Assist turnovers is a great stat because of the system he's got them in. You know, there's a lot of space for him to throw that thing, and you knock down threes. You know, that's assists. So very difficult system to defend when you got the right players in it.
Coach, you're 4 games in the conference, but like I said, instead of the back-to-back in this one, you're playing 2 games in 3 days. But how would you evaluate your team 4 games, you know, having those 2 losses as opposed to just having the 2 losses during non-conference?
Well, Jeff, naturally, you wouldn't want any losses. Two of those games, we've lost 2 games on one play there at the end, basically. So you've heard me say this many a time that, winning and losing is a fine line. And so there's 2 losses, one at Charlotte, got the last second shot to win it. And, basically the same way the other night. So it's a fine line. I think the one thing that we haven't done as well is hadn't shot the ball as well. And when you shoot the ball, that makes everything better. You're better a defensive team. And I don't think we've shot bad shots. We've missed a lot of 2-pointers. We missed some easy layups around that rim. And again, you keep missing shots. That defense keeps doing this. Then it makes it harder to get in there to Bassey or get in there to get in there off that bounce and everything. We didn't get to the foul line a lot the second game because Louisiana Tech did a good job keeping that ball out of that lane. And so whatever we do, we've got to make some shots. We got to make some of those 2-point shots that we normally make. So, we've done it, most of the year. Both these last 2 teams done a good job keeping us from doing that consistently. So hopefully we can be better at that Friday night.
Coach Marshall likes to get to the free throw line as well. So what do you all have to do to keep them from getting there?
Well, again, I think the biggest thing they do is they throw those lobs, those guys off those screens. They're really not screens. It's fake screen and dive. And because that ball is always high, there's a lot of people fouling them on those lob plays. So again, you've got to be able to try to limit some of those plays. That's a big part of their offense. You take that away, then you take it away with help. Now you creates maybe a 3-point shot for somebody else because you're helping on those lobs. So, like I said, they're very difficult to defend.
Anything else for Coach?